Hello, this is Mark Chapman with International Transportation Law 610 with Professor Matthew Dudman. We decided to talk about Matson leading into the future. Summary of current operations, what Matson has is they are currently doing business on the west coast of the United States, Hawaii, Guam, China, and Mexico. They were able to carry full containers in and empty containers out of China. Therefore, no fluctuation of containers are too small or too great as far as empty and full containers go, which is a benefit. That's why they picked up Guam. Newly acquired on a full-time route is Mexico, due to all the goods being manufactured there in recent times due to labor costs. So I kind of wanted to talk about the way Matson is going to do this with the influx in Mexico. Currently, Matson Logistics holds Tier 1 agreements with BNSF and CSX Railroads, which is great. That allows them to lock in cost and do legal carriage of goods internationally and within the American interstate. All other agreements have Northern American rail carriers as well. In addition to the rail, they offer dock services, provided transportation of refrigerated hazards, overweight, overdimensional freight. When you add in domestic intermodal, highway, and warehousing distribution service, Matson Logistics offers a lot to the customer. However, they're going to fall behind if they don't revamp their Mexico abilities with the rail and truck, and possibly look into air as well. The way that I want to talk about currently is this is the railroad consists the tracks of just America. This is what the potential is. Again, those agreements with other railroads have helped them establish solid routes with good prices. This here is a Union Pacific Railroad, which is a strong railroad within the central United States. However, on the Norfolk over here has a strong eastern presence, and that would allow, if they were to use Mexico as in rail and truck, they could go up through Texas in a major hub and distribute over to eastern United States, which would really help them, again, with those Tier 1 agreements and following all the legal guidelines. As far as this goes, this is into Canada. This is the Canadian Pacific Railroad, which is CP. CP is responsible for a lot of the rails that go into Canada, which could come up Mexico through rail straight to Canada or by steamship and over. However, Matson would like to do it. Again, it would be a wise decision to get their Tier 1 agreements with Canada as well. And last but not least, we have the Kansas City Southern Rail, or KCS, which in my opinion would be a great strength that they could have that they don't currently have as far as locking in those rates again and lowering cost of transporting goods for the company from Mexico up into mid-Kansas and central United States again. All right, a couple of the strengths that Matson have is service to China, availability to balance full and empty containers. They can, using Guam and part of Hawaii actually, they can come back to China, leaving with full containers from China and going to China with full containers. In the past, it's been an issue with a fluctuation of increase of containers heading one way or the other. For China, this has been great to be able to balance those out and go through Matson. Early negotiations with longshoremen unions allowed Matson to come up with labor relations regarding the longshoremen. When there was a work slowage prior with the company, Matson was able to avoid that since they own their own terminals. Therefore, they can control, and since they negotiated those disputes early before the rest of the companies. They were allowed to continue business as normal when generally APL and other companies were not in the same predicament. They were having wait times of 2 weeks with ships waiting outside, which can cost ships money, and that's just not good. The strong international West Coast rail and trucking logistics is a good strength of Matson, and an idea would be to increase the strength of the rail. Strong current and future nearshoring with Mexico, coming from steamship or rail and truck through Mexico into central Texas, is a great strength of Matson, and again, a good thing would be able to increase that. Let's see, make sure we're good. We're in weakness, all right. No rail Tier 1 agreements with Canada Pacific, Kansas City Southern, Norfolk Southern, or Union Pacific, like just stated, are available. They are lagging on the rail department, so that would be a good strength that we could increase there to profitability, but right now it's a weakness. Weak logistics coming out of Mexico. I spoke to a gentleman by the name of Mickey Evans. He was the Matson account sales logistics manager here, and according to him, he said that there's a major surplus of containers coming out of Mexico and less going back, which leads to a shortage of containers with a 4-to-1 ratio. So right now, that's one logistic struggle they're facing, as well with legality of the containers. Even though they are empty, it's still owned by Matson. And another issue is that they are shipping containers that are not Matson, and they need to be covered by a number of acts, and we're going to talk about that just right now. The Carmack Amendment also provides the carrier limit of its liability to a value established. Oh, I'm sorry, did I not switch that? I apologize. There we go. It's better for you. Established by written declaration of the shipper or written agreement. This needs to be addressed as well with the empty containers, as I said, not owned by Matson, that I just spoke about, will be transported via rail and steamship. So we need to make sure that those are up to legal standards of the Carmack once we deal with that. Next one. The Hogg-Visby rules must be followed closely, despite the container being full or empty again. I want to focus on article number 3. It's a bit long, but if you bear with me here. After receiving the goods into his carriage, the carrier and their master or the agent or the carrier shall, on demand of the shipper, issue to the shipper a bill of lading, which we're going to talk about as one of the 3 major documents that's needed, showing, among other things, the leading marks necessary for identification of the goods, as some are furnished in writing by the shipper before loading of such goods starts, or as an empty container shipped, provided such marks are stamped and otherwise shown clearly upon the goods if uncovered, which they can state that there's nothing in there, or the cases coverings in which such goods are contained, in such a manner as should ordinarily remain legitimate until the end of the voyage. Under the number of packages or pieces on the quantity or weight of the cases may be furnished in the writing by the shipper. In this case, the container will say it's empty. The parent order and condition of the goods, provided that the no-carry master or agent of the carrier shall be bound to the state or show in the bill of lading any marks, number, quantity, or weight, which he has reasonable ground for suspecting not accurate to represent the goods actually received. That means you don't want to say there's something in the container if there's not, or even worse, that the container's empty if it's got goods in it. This needs to be addressed with Matson and non-Matson containers. We'll go then. Next is respectfully evaluate. Yes. Respectfully evaluate the carriage of goods in Sea Act. Once loaded until discharge regarding common carriage. Matson must be careful not to damage any containers that are empty and lack of outgoing containers to Mexico. And that means that they got to be careful because the limited amount of containers that are going there could be damaged or something could be wrong. And there's a liability for negligence of empty containers. Any clause, covenant, or agreement in a contract of carriage relieving the carrier or a ship from liability for loss or damage to a container in connection with goods arising from negligence. In this case, again, it's not empty, but it's still are liable. Fault or failure to duties obligations provided in this section, or leasing such liability otherwise than a provided with this act, shall be null or void with no effect. So a benefit of insurance in favor of the carriage or simple clause shall be deemed to be a clause relieving the carrier from liability. Matson must be careful not to damage any containers. Oh, I said that. I apologize. Let's see. Next one. Moving right along. Making sure we're following everything. The 3 legal documents that they must make sure they have when they're going to do the new business, especially with the surplus of containers coming from Mexico via rail or steamship, which is inevitable at this case going forward. Again, due to labor rates, is a letter of credit. Guarantees the importer bank that it will act on behalf of the importer and pay the exporter for the full or empty container. It means it's got to pay in full. Time draft, which is written order instructed the importer or his agent, the importer's bank, to pay the amount specified on the face of a future date. That means he will pay upon delivery of this future date. That's very important. You just can't trust anybody, even if it's coming from Mexico. They're a neighbor. Must make sure that those empty or full containers are taken care of. And of course, last but not least, one of my the most important things is bill of lading, a document issued by the common carrier specifying that has received the goods for shipment that can serve as a title to the goods. So in this case, it must have a bill of lading stating that there's nothing in the container, or that there is something in the container coming from Mexico via steamship or rail, or air or truck, or any of those combined. That's a few of the ways we can improve Matson, and a few of the weaknesses that we have. And I hope you learned something. Thank you for tuning in.